Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
We're jumping right into the Stone Zone. Now, it's amazing to me that after 62 years, we're still not exactly certain who murdered President John Fitzgerald Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963, and why. Despite the fact that when he became president, Donald Trump issued an executive order to the National Archives to release all of the classified documents in their possession pertaining to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the assassination of his brother, then New York Senator Robert F. Kennedy Sr., father of the current Secretary of HHS, and Dr. Martin Luther King. There's reason to believe in all of those cases that the American people haven't been told the entire truth. The Warren Commission, the commission appointed to cover up the murder of JFK, has been demolished by critics over the years, but Anna Paulina Luna, the crusading congresswoman from Florida, who chairs the House Oversight Committee examining all of these documents that President Trump declassified and calling key witnesses, exposed something the CIA has been hiding for decades, and that is the files of one George Joannides. Joannides was essentially acting as a tracker, if not the handler, of Lee Harvey Oswald, who the Central Intelligence Agency has long denied having knowledge of in November 22nd of 1963. In fact, Oswald went to a CIA language school in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, which is where he spoke Russian. We also know in one of the earlier document dumps ordered by President Trump that they withheld his tax records because, well, there was a 1099 for Lee Harvey Oswald from the FBI, where he also worked as an informant. So it's amazing in every one of these cases, the case of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., once again, Sirhan, the man convicted of his murder, is always in front of Kennedy. He gets off, depending on what you believe. A lot of this information is redacted in the public records, but 6 or 8 shots, I think it is 6, all 6 are accounted for. None of them hit Senator Robert Kennedy, and the longtime Los Angeles coroner, who was very renowned, insisted in the autopsy that Robert F. Kennedy was shot at point-blank range in his left rear of his skull, which would indicate that Sirhan could not have been the killer. In the case of Dr. Martin Luther King, James Earl Ray confessed, later recanted that confession. The King family brought a civil action suing the federal government, the FBI, the Secret Service, the Memphis police, in civil court in a long trial in which they charged that the federal government had been involved in King's murder, and they won that case. So the upcoming hearings that Chairwoman Luna will run, continuing on JFK, but now drilling in on RFK and then Dr. King, as long as the Republicans remain in the majority, we will learn more and more. If the Democrats won the House, all of these investigations and all of these hearings would end because they would come back and try to reinforce the deep state narrative about these decisions. But now, as I've long predicted, a long-lost home movie from the actual day that President Kennedy was shot could finally force the federal government to answer decades of unanswered questions. Many people are familiar with the Zapruder film, which purports to show that Kennedy was shot 3 times from the back. But I got Arlen Specter, who was the chief investigator for the Warren Commission, later the U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, to admit when I showed him that frames had been removed from that film. Zapruder was a citizen. His camera was immediately seized, first by the Dallas police and then by the FBI. They sent the film to Rochester, New York for quote-unquote processing for some reason, and it came back with missing frames. But it is interesting that Dan Rather insisted, he was the last journalist to see this video before Time Life bought it from the federal government and locked up access to it for over 50 years. But Dan Rather insisted that in the video he saw Jack Kennedy's head snapped forward, sharply forward, as if being hit from behind. And of course, now that we've seen the actual film, thanks to Oliver Stone and others, and Paulina Luna among them, we see that Kennedy's actually his head snaps back into the left. This second film now could answer the question of multiple shooters. I think it's abundantly clear, based on the recent documentary by Paramount, what the Parkland doctors saw. It's apparent that Kennedy was shot from both the front and the back, but this new film could really shed huge light on it. A federal judge just ruled that a lawsuit over the missing 8mm film shot by a Dallas a resident by the name of Orville Nix can move forward. Nix was an air conditioning repairman who just happened to be filming that day, but from an angle opposite of Zapruder, so from the other side. Many believe that this footage would challenge the longtime lone gunman narrative. See, unlike Zapruder's film, Nix's camera was pointed directly at the grassy knoll, where numerous witnesses said shots may have originated on that day. I certainly say that in my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. This film has not been seen since 1978, when it was sent for analysis to the House Select Committee on Assassinations and promptly disappears. Now the government claims they don't know where the original copy is. So Nix's granddaughter has sued the government, arguing the film was effectively seized without compensation, violating the Fifth Amendment, being an illegal taking, and demanding transparency about how the government handled this critical assassination evidence. Now, legal experts have told me that modern optics and AI technology today could extract details from the original film that were impossible to analyze decades ago. Not so with the Zapruder film, which has unfortunately already been tampered with. This potentially reinforces the conclusions of that 78 House Select Committee on Assassinations that Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy. Talk about a non-starter. The House Select Committee, first of all, was staffed with people who were experts on organized crime. Secondarily, the CIA stonewalled that investigation, refusing to provide any documents or testimony from any CIA officials, basically playing rope-a-dope with their subpoenas. Over the years, I've talked about the Nix film because it reportedly passed through the hands of the FBI, Congress, various media organizations, federal contractors, before disappearing into the National Archives bureaucratic maze, where the government now says they don't know where it is. So how did all of these other entities get pieces of it? You see, we need to see the entire film, and the entire film is not available anyplace but, well, wherever the government put it or lost it. Families say the case isn't about money. It's not money they want. It's accountability and uncovering what else the government may have misplaced, including the autopsy materials and internal police recordings. This has always been one of the fascinations. The Warren Commission was never shown the actual X-rays or the X-ray photos of JFK. They were shown an artist's rendering of them. Now, when I raised this point in a debate with a colleague of mine. He said that was at the request of the Kennedy family. But where are those documents today? Where have they gone missing? Are they classified? They were withheld from the Warren Commission, I think, to prop up the false narrative of the single bullet theory. This film, I think, could put to bed the fact that theory was essentially designed to support the idea of no conspiracy. In other words, if Kennedy was shot from the front and the back, well, then that would be a conspiracy, which means Lee Harvey Oswald was not a lone nut acting alone. Pinning the blame on Oswald is really pretty laughable on a number of fronts. First of all, Oswald is seen after allegedly shooting from the sixth-story window of the Texas School Book Depository building. He is seen casually eating an apple and drinking a Coke at the end of his lunch in the second floor cafeteria by a Dallas police officer. So in order for Oswald to have been the shooter, as the government wants us to believe, he would have had to get off 3 perfect shots, which no marksman in the U.S. Military has been able to duplicate in the required time sequence, because you see a Dallas motorcycle police officer accidentally left his microphone on, so we have the exact time sequence of the shots. And hid the rifle, run down, at this point, 4 flights of stairs without being seen or heard. A woman named Victoria Adams was on the wooden staircase between those floors at that exact time. She neither saw nor heard Lee Harvey Oswald. Yet another reason why Oswald could not possibly be the shooter. Oswald also has no powder burns, no nitrate burns on his hands or his arms and his face, yet they tell us that he fired a leaky Carcano rifle that day, a $26 World War II vintage, very cheap weapon that he theoretically bought through the mail under an alias, when in Texas in 1963 you could walk into any pawn shop or any gun shop and buy that cheap a weapon. None of this has ever added up. I still think that what we're looking at here in 1963 is the beginning of the control of the military-industrial complex, as Dwight Eisenhower called them, or the deep state. It is with the murder of Kennedy that this unelected elite, the people deep in the bowels of government, who are permanent, the appointees, those in the think tanks, those in the defense contracting companies, those in our military, deep within the bureaucracy of our foreign policy apparatus. That is the deep state. They killed Kennedy. They removed Nixon in a nonviolent coup. They tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan, and they failed. And then, of course, they first tried to break Donald Trump financially. They tried to keep him off the ballot in all 50 states. They tried to impoverish him. They tried to send him to prison, and they failed. He scored the greatest political comeback in American history. And now the American economy is coming back. Inflation is down. Food prices are down. Gas prices are way down. Once we get an honest Federal Reserve, a non-political Federal Reserve, unlike the politicized Federal Reserve run by Jerome Too Late Powell, now replaced by Kevin Warsh, who is pro-growth and I think pro-interest rate cut. You see, the interest rates are supposed to be based on the unemployment rate and the inflation rate. Both are lower today than the last time the Fed went for a deep cut when they tried to rescue the political career of one Joe Biden and failed. He bounced out of the race anyway. So once we get that interest rate cut, which is coming, the housing market will really take off. The Director of Federal Housing and Finance, Bill Pulte, an innovative guy doing more and more to make housing affordable and more available in America, working in tandem with Secretary Scott Bessent, who I think is among the greatest secretaries of the Treasury. I compared him once to Alexander Hamilton, and then people said that was a criticism. So I think he's as great as Bill Simon, and Bill Simon was a great growth advocate who opposed Nixon's move to close the gold window and opposed Nixon's decision for wage and price controls within the debates in the Nixon cabinet. That's how great Scott Bessent is. We'll be right back.
Zone with Roger Stone.
It is a great, great person, Roger Stone.
The Stone Zone. This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
There's a new focus on the 2020 election. President Trump has long held that the numbers don't add up, and for anybody who's interested, we now know that 205,000 more votes were counted in Pennsylvania than are registered to vote. Over 1.5 million fraudulent votes were counted, and that spread is less than 82,000 votes. Those fraudulent votes came from dead voters, ballots that were received before they were supposedly mailed out. There are over 330,000 electronic spikes from the voting machine. That's a giant jump in the votes for Joe Biden. 682,000 ballots that were illegally processed without any oversight whatsoever, and more than 1.5 million votes in Pennsylvania, apparently what it took for Joe Biden to steal that state. In Georgia, 66,240 underage voters voted in Georgia, 10,315 dead people voted, 2,500 convicted felons voted. Nearly 200,000 votes were fraudulently inserted into the vote count date simultaneously. There's a computer record to prove that. 4,500 votes came from unregistered voters. And of course, Fulton County election board officials admitted, the Fulton County election board officials admitted to the Georgia State Election Board some 315,000 votes were counted without signatures or ID numbers connected to the voter tape. Donald Trump lost the state by 11,000 some odd votes. So you see why Tulsi Gabbard is on the scene in Fulton County. She's also investigating the security and manipulability of these electronic voting machines, because just like with the Russian collusion hoax, the truth was hidden from us for so long. But now Donald Trump, I think, is on the trail of the truth. The big media, they want to dismiss this. Nothing to see here, keep moving. And they keep telling the lie. Trump brought 60 lawsuits and he lost them all. No, Trump brought 60 lawsuits and not one of them was heard. They were all dismissed on a technicality, usually standing. So we're going to get to the bottom of what happened in 2020. I'm Roger Stone, and we'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, who's a one of the smartest political minds. Roger Stone was persecuted. People forget he's actually a brilliant political analyst.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
You know, Stephen Colbert, to me, used to be funny before he went to CBS. And I understand he was a parody of what they thought a right-winger would be like. But he became one of the most caustic, belligerent, and extreme left-wing voices after moving to CBS. The man is not without talent. His online dancing and singing to Daft Punk's Get Lucky is one of the best pieces of television I've ever seen. But now, after appearing on NBC's late night show with Seth Meyers, another guy who's no longer funny, Colbert confirmed that The Late Show with Stephen Colbert will air its final episode on May 21st of 2026, after CBS declined to renew the program, citing what the network called a financial decision. That means Colbert's show was declining in ratings and was costing the network tens of millions of dollars. Colbert admitted the cancellation is finally sinking in, go woke, go broke, saying now it feels real. He also joked that his dream final guest would be the Pope, which is not likely considering Pope Leo is taking the Catholic Church in a more conservative direction than his predecessor, although he too is not perfect. During the interview with Colbert, Meyers raised rumors that Colbert might run for office. That means it was a planted question between friends, possibly even for president. Now, Pat Paulson, who was, like Colbert, a comedian, ran for president as kind of a spoof, which made him a national figure, and he actually was getting a decent percentage in the polls, although it was really just a comedy act, and Colbert may be getting a second 15 minutes. It's kind of like Don Lemon. And I hate to say this, but in a way, Don Lemon, while he's being prosecuted for federal crime, his name is back in the news and he's irrelevant again when he had to break the law in order to achieve irrelevancy. So Colbert it could be considering kind of a spoof run for president. Instead, he also said he'd consider serving the American people in a way greater than late night television, pending conversations with family and faith leaders. That's pretty laughable because this guy has never evidenced any reverence for God. So after years of lecturing us from behind a desk, mocking voters, calling me a Russian spy multiple times, mocking my manner of dress, which I admit is distinctive, attacking President Trump, and carrying water for Democrats, Colbert could actually be eyeing not a joke run for president, but a serious run for public office. Maybe he's hoping to follow in the footsteps of Al Franken, the former Minnesota senator who got his start as a left-wing humorist before he made the jump into politics. Franken, of course, was disgraced and forced to resign after an image of him accosting a woman resurfaced during the height of the Me Too era. The supporters of Franken have long blamed me for that because I heard that such a photo existed from a producer in Fox, and I tweeted about it, but that doesn't mean I worked for months with the woman to coach her in a setup of the former Minnesota senator who was driven from the Senate. Anyway, Colbert would be an embarrassment should he choose to run, but if he picks the right district, unfortunately, he could actually win, and that's a scary thought. On the other hand, the Democrat Party has no strong candidate for president. Kamala Harris wisely decided not to run for governor of California. That preserves her options. She's still the best-known Democrat in the party, and she just overspent hundreds of millions of dollars running for president. You have AOC, who could most certainly have the low money Act Blue generated base to raise tens of millions of dollars for a bid. You have another Californian, Gavin Newsom, he of the great hair, who they wouldn't let speak in Davos. I'm not sure why he went, but who's trying to reinvent himself as both Donald Trump's harshest critic and a guy doing a good job, while his state is a basket case. While millions of dollars of fraud and corruption is crashing around his knees. This was predicted to me, by the way. An old colleague of mine, Lou Barnett, longtime Republican operative and activist, was actually treasurer of the Young Republican National Federation from 77 to 79 when I was national chairman. Told me months ago that the level of corruption and just outright theft, millions of dollars disappearing, housing money and so on, this has turned out to be extraordinarily accurate. So I guess if Gavin Newsom runs for president, his slogan would be like Mike Dukakis's slogan. Remember, he said he'll do for America what he did for Massachusetts. which was a basket case. Between taxes, crime, and environmental problems, homelessness, and drug addiction, California is the world's largest outdoor toilet, which is sad given the great natural beauty and perfect climate of state. I used to go there every summer. My wife and I would spend 2 weeks in Northern California, usually in La Jolla at the beach, and 2 weeks in Southern California, usually at Los Angeles. I always loved the Four Seasons on Doheny. It was a great, great hotel. And there's a lot of used bookstores there that I would scour in the summer times. But now I wouldn't go back there on vacation. It's extraordinary what's happened to the Sunshine State. Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a lifetime Reagan Republican, very close to Ronald and Nancy Reagan, a solid conservative, after he became governor, of course, he lurched far to the left. He retained most of the people around Gray Davis, his extraordinarily unpopular predecessor, and it appears that his then wife, Maria Shriver, was actually governor, driving the state further and further to the left. Ultimately, in order to be accepted in Hollywood society, Arnold Schwarzenegger would go hard left, becoming an outspoken advocate for mandatory vaccinations. This is a guy who said that he believed in freedom. Meanwhile, speaking of Hollywood elitists and the entertainment media are forced to eat crow after First Lady Melania Trump's documentary, Melania, shattered all box office expectations during its opening weekend, hauling in an impressive $7 million across the United States and Canada. That makes it the strongest theatrical documentary debut since 2012 and one of the biggest surprise hits of the year. The project left entertainment insiders openly stunned. Pre-release projections had pegged the film at somewhere between 3 and 5 million, and critics rushed to dismiss it preemptively due to their political bias. Rotten Tomatoes professional reviewers, of course, left-wingers, slammed the documentary, handing it a miserable 10 score. But the fact that it racked up $7 million in sales shows that the American people feel quite differently about it. Audience obviously told a very different story. Viewer approval soared to 99% on Rotten Tomatoes with an A rating from CinemaScope exit polls and 5-star reviews from Post-Track. So all of the other media analysts played it straight. Analysts noted that anything over $1 million for any documentary today is considered a major success. Melania cleared that bar several times over. Even Get Me, Roger Stone, put out there by Netflix, has grossed them, I believe, somewhere close to $12.5 million over time. The film, Melania, ranked third overall at the box office for the weekend, outperforming most of the other major studio releases. Nearly half of the ticket sales came from rural theaters. This is interesting. An unusually high share, with Republican-leading counties accounting for a majority of the attendance. See, the American people love Melania. I've known Melania since she was dating then bachelor, single Donald J. Trump. He was living in Trump Tower. I had many dinners with her. She and I traveled together during President Trump's, then Donald Trump's, exploratory tour looking at a potential presidential bid in 2000. And I'm happy to say that my wife and I were at the Bethesda at the Sea Church in Palm Beach when Donald and Melania were married. It was an amazing day because I remember that Chris Matthews and his wife today, a man who viciously attacks Donald Trump, were in the same pew at the church as I was. It is outrageous that Melania Trump, who is a woman of culture and grace and discretion, highly educated, speaks 5 languages, is a terrific and I think appropriately protective mother, and the president's, without any question, the president's closest advisor. There's no one who has more quiet influence. The president respects her as he should. But the documentary is knocking him dead in places like Florida, Texas, and Arizona. But more women than men are attending, which is also interesting. There's been a lack of Melania-related media content, despite the fact she's the most glamorous first lady in history certainly since Jackie O. She hasn't gone and done a podcast like Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama's podcast is a mystery to me. How do people with this many million of followers on X and every other social media platform get so few views for their racist and vicious podcast? It makes me wonder whether the entire Obama phenomena was largely astroturf, because the bloom is off that rose. You can see it in the off-year elections, the campaigning, even today, the statements of Barack Obama, who, by the way, deported 2.6 million people from the United States during his presidency without anyone complaining about ICE or the entire process. So I wonder whether they have lost their political punch. I still think it is outrageous that Melania, who is without any question one of the kindest, most gentle, cultured people I know, but who is an incredible dresser. She's been on my annual international best and worst dress list. She's been in the best dress list for several years. This year, we moved her to the Hall of Fame category, along with Larry Kudlow and Greg Kelly, Josh Mankiewicz of NBC, and a number of others. Sophia Loren, some of the most sharply dressed people in the world. I think she deserved that honor, in all honesty. Meanwhile, ICE has become ground zero. I should say Arizona has become ground zero in the Trump administration's renewed push to restore border enforcement and reclaim national sovereignty. It's important to note that those who said the president blinked or that he stepped back or he stepped down in Minnesota must not be watching the news, because the arrests of dangerous, illegal criminals, people who are here illegally with criminal records, either in their home of origin, country of origin, or here in the United States, or facing trial on charges, or newly arrested on charges, are continued to being deported. And the conditions that the president gave Tim Walz, I can't imagine Walz will ever agree to. Start by turning over everyone in your custody who is illegal. Start by committing that when you arrest a new illegal on some other crime other than their illegal entry to the country, that you'll turn them over immediately to ICE. And the local police have to back up the ICE agents rather than standing by idly while they do nothing. In Arizona, federal immigration authorities have spent $70 million on a massive new 418 square foot warehouse in Surprise, Arizona, roughly the size of 7 football fields, to be converted into a 1,500 bed ICE processing and detention center. This is very much like what was done in El Salvador, where that president, Nayib Bukele, saved his country with these tough-minded tactics. This cash purchase, which was finalized in January, is part of a broader effort to expand the detention capacity and should accelerate deportations before the end of the year, despite the chaos under Democrat leadership. Predictably, of course, Arizona Democrats were triggered, erupted over the announcement, with one state senator calling the facility abhorrent, absurdly claiming that enforcing immigration law somehow threatens the Constitution, even though it has been upheld. Even more alarming, of course, was the Democrat Attorney General Chris Mays, who suggested citizens were justified in using lethal force against masked federal agents under Arizona's Stand Your Ground law. Absurd. Those are reckless comments, and they are the ones ramping up the temperature. I'm Roger Stone. We're talking about the deportation efforts and illegal immigrants and those with criminal records, 70% of those who've been arrested, and we'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
It is a great, great person, Roger Stone.
The Stone Zone. Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
You know, it's abundantly clear to me that the people who run the National Football League have no idea who their viewers and fans are. I'm a longtime critic of the NFL and Roger Goodell because for many years they cheated their veteran players, people who played in the early days of football, many of whom sustained serious injuries. A class of people, some of them Hall of Famers, that was disproportionately African American. And although there was a settlement, most of the money ended up going to the lawyers, and almost none of it went to the players. I think this is disgraceful and continues to be. But now it looks like the NFL has gone full woke with its anti-Trump, ghettoized, Latin gibberish Super Bowl halftime performer Bad Bunny, who's a man but has announced that he'll be wearing a dress. And that is their new half show time for the upcoming Super Bowl. I just can't see your average football fan, an all-American type, thinking this is great entertainment. The good news is that there will be an alternative because Turning Point USA, where I've spoken many times, the organization founded by my good and late friend Charlie Kirk, has announced its lineup for an all-American halftime show, which will air February 8th. This family-friendly event will feature Kid Rock, Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Cabby Barnett, all artists known for celebrating patriotism and more traditional American values. The Turning Point spokesman, Andrew Colvett, said the goal is simple: to provide Americans with an entertainment option that celebrates faith, family, and freedom without any displays of political propaganda, cultural degeneracy, and worse. Their show will stream live around 8 p.m. during halftime, directly competing with the NFL's official broadcast featuring Bad Bunny, whoever that is. Kid Rock framed the effort as a David versus Goliath moment, specifically taking aim at the league's decision to feature the rapper Bad Bunny at Super Bowl 60. Bad Bunny has previously attacked President Trump, refused to perform in English, promoted all this crazy gender-bending and queer icon stuff, even going so far as to say he was planning to wear a dress again during the halftime show. But despite the backlash, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, son of former New York U.S. Senator Charles Goodell, dismissed any concerns, insisting controversy is unavoidable and defending the league's very poor choice. Millions of Americans, I predict, are going to tune out. This is going to be very interesting to see. The All-American Halftime Show will stream across TPUSA's YouTube, their X, and their Rumble channels. I think they have additional distribution on Sinclair Broadcast, OTT platform, YouTube TV, Hulu, Sling, and other outlets, including the Daily Wire, TBN, Real America's Voice, NTD, ONN. Who knows, we may even run it here. Make sure to tune in. I like to see as many Americans as possible go for the wholesome entertainment alternative and say, no, we need to win the culture war. This is a perfect example where people can stand up and be counted. They're on network. We know, based on the rate that people pay for commercials, how many millions of viewers they will traditionally have. This will be a very interesting test of the old media versus the new media. I'm Roger Stone. Thanks for joining us in the Stone Zone. Until we meet again, God bless you and Godspeed.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the pain points of wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.